Good afternoon. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first HBCU Career Crash Course of 2021, where we provide content curated for you, delivered by companies invested in you. And I am so very pleased that FDIC is such a company presenting keys to building your personal brand effectively. So during this session, they will discuss the key skills to help you build an effective brand through influence and leadership, creating value both from a professional as well as an individual perspective. So leading us through today's discussion is Daryl Jackson. He is a corporate recruiter and a special assistant to the deputy director. So know that his experience and credentials are stellar, and I am sure he will share a bit of that with you during the discussion, but I wanted to highlight a few elements of his background that speak directly to his relevance today. So first, he has progressed through the organization, gaining more and more responsibility with each role. So that speaks to how you can create value. Then he's an active mentor, so he can provide insight on influencing others. And finally, he is an alum of an HBCU graduating from Mississippi State University. Daryl, FDIC team, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Paula. I appreciate the great introduction. Uh, Thank you, everybody. Welcome to our presentation this afternoon. Again, as Paula said, it's our the first event, and it's keys to building your personal brand effectively. With me, that's joining me from the FDIC, I have Catrice Yoakley, and I also have Kathy Moe and Pamela McNeil. Briefly, I'll allow Catrice and Pamela to introduce themselves, and then later I'll introduce Kathy Moe later. So Catrice, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Catrice Yoakley. I currently work for the FDIC in our Division of Risk Management Supervision, and I serve as the chief for our communications section, which is responsible for both internal and external communications and resources for bankers, as well as our staff. Like Daryl, I have matriculated through the corporation, building my career brick by brick. We definitely started on the same day, so I've seen a lot of what Daryl has experienced, and likewise, he's seen a lot of what I've experienced. And it's been a pleasure to really grow and to develop my own personal brand. And so I'm looking forward to speaking with you all today about how that evolves as you progress through your career. And more importantly, how you start. Where's the foundation? And what do you do to ensure that you are in fact, developing your brand in a manner that's positive for you and shines a light no matter whether you're there in a room or not. So thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to going through this discussion.
Thank you, Catrice. Pamela?
Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela McNeil. I'm the Corporate Recruiter Program Director for the FDIC. We have two of our best recruiters on the line.
Pamela, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So my name is Pamela McNeil. I'm the Corporate Recruitment Program Director, and we do have two of our best corporate recruiters on the line with you. We have a cadre of over 300 corporate recruiters that reach out to over 600 schools nationwide for our entry-level bank examiner position. So I'm excited that we're able to join you today. I will turn it over to Daryl. I'll be available checking the Q&A for you all when you have questions and answers. So I'll go on and turn it over to Daryl.
Thank you, Pamela. And we also have Kathy Moe, but again, we're going to save her introduction for a little later, and then she'll get an opportunity to talk to you about kind of her career path and her personal brand. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get started with our presentation. And again, this is our first slide, keys to the effectively building your personal brand. And then Catrice will go over our objectives, and then we'll go through each bullet.
So the goal for today is to tell you a little bit about the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, who we are, what we offer to the nation's financial system, and kind of some of the things that you would recognize about our brand. We have an executive spotlight, which is Kathy Moe, and as Darryl said, he'll introduce her and give her an opportunity to speak later in the presentation. We'll talk about how you define your personal brand, the importance of having a personal brand, how social media can impact that, and then we had an exercise, but in the interest of time, what we'll do instead is give you some examples and other things that you can utilize as you're building your personal brand after this session. And then of course, we'll recap, tell you what we're gonna tell you, and then tell you what we told you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. All right, everyone. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So we're the FDIC. We are an independent federal agency that was created by Congress in response to the bank failures of the 1920s and 1930s during the Great Depression. The FDIC is an independent agency that does not receive any congressional appropriations. Our FDIC is strictly funded through banks that pay insurance premiums for deposit insurance. The FDIC insures trillions of deposits throughout the country, and we ensure that each deposit is safe and sound. So the mission of the FDIC. So the FDIC, our primary mission is to maintain stability and public confidence in the nation's financial systems. We have three main business functions. The first is deposit insurance. Each deposit account is insured up to $250,000 and depending on the structure of the accounts. And this has been in place since 1934. Up until recently, that deposit insurance account was $100,000, but as during the Great Recession, Congress decides to enhance that insurance premium to $250,000. Our second main business function is supervision and examinations. So the FDIC supervises and examines approximately 5,000 institutions around the country. We primarily look at our safety and soundness, or our risk management side of the house, looking at the financial risk of institutions. And we also look at the consumer protection side. We ensure that the banks are treating consumers fairly, and banks are reinvesting money back into communities where they accept deposits, which is known as the Community Reinvestment Act. And then our last bit, and our third key business function is resolutions. So we're there to ensure that if a bank is in financial trouble, that we have a team that comes in to resolve those banks. And we immediately bring a team in, and we look at the assets, and we actually transition those assets over to an acquiring institution, or we work through ways with our deposits where we can ensure that our depositors don't lose any money. Our footprint, where we're located. So the FDIC, we're headquartered in Washington, D.C. We have 6 regional offices across the nation, and we have about 80 field locations across the nation. Those field locations are responsible for ensuring that the banks in their territory are safe and sound, and then consumer protection is appropriate. And then those field offices report up to the regional offices, which are San Francisco, Dallas, Atlanta, Kansas City, Chicago, and New York. And ultimately, those regional offices flow up through our Washington, D.C. office. A key note to know about the FDIC, we've been ranked one of the best federal agencies to work for the past 10 years. Best mid-sized federal agencies to work for the past 10 years. Now, with that being said, we will now move to our next segment. I'll turn it over to Catrice to talk about the importance of branding.
So first, we'll talk about corporate branding or corporate identity. Why does a company actually go through the process of branding themselves? It's so that when you see a commercial with a person with a milk mustache, you think just milk. When you see a Nike swoosh, you think just do it. So when you see Apple, you automatically think about the products that they offer. Essentially, these are the brand, and it's the corporate identity. It's seeing their logo, knowing how they behave, what kind of customer service they offer. How do they communicate with consumers? What's the purpose of their culture? Everyone knows that Google's very laid back. That's something that they're well known for. Vision. Apple's well known for really bringing things forward, helping people to progress, putting technology in front of you and making it as user-friendly and seamless as possible. And design, what are some of the features that you get from a company? What do they really bring to the table that shows you what their mission is? All of that works together to establish their corporate identity. And so those are things that you're familiar with when looking at companies, but you can also do the same thing for yourself as an individual. So I talked about some of those brands, and if you look in this picture, these are all common names that you probably know, local household names, companies that you don't have to do anything but see their logo and it automatically makes you think of something. Right now, I'm sure everyone thinks of Amazon and their little smiley face, yellow swoosh immediately because you probably ordered a million things during the pandemic just from Amazon. But these are all different places that have established a well-known brand. And one of the things is that over the years, they've worked so that their slogans are recognizable to you, so that when you see them, you already know like this is essentially what they stand for. They set the tone for how their company communicates with you, how they identify themselves in the market. In a handful of words, they've developed a slogan that's a rallying cry, if you will. And so it represents their power and the potential of their branding. Strong brands, they stand out in any crowd, anywhere you go, people know them. And those things help to increase their sales, increase awareness about their products. It also helps to ensure that you have a better customer service experience because they're building a brand and they want to maintain that from start to finish. All right. So as I said, branding isn't just for companies. Each professional has an opportunity to develop their own story. It's what do you want people to know about you? What's your rapport? How are you recognized in a business setting, in a personal setting, any social environment, even things like in your church, sororities and fraternities, classrooms, all of those things. Your personal branding is your career brand story. And so we're thankful for the opportunity that we actually have someone who's going to tell you about that today.
Thank you, Catrice. And so now we're going to move to the executive spotlight portion of our presentation. So I have the honor and privilege to introduce one of our key executives here at the FDIC, Ms. Kathy Moe. Kathy serves as the regional director for our San Francisco region, where she is responsible for some of our most complex institutions. And she oversees 11 Western states, plus Guam and the federal states of Micronesia. Kathy also supervises some of our large and most complex institutions. She's a 35-year veteran of the FDIC. She's served in various leadership capacities. She's been responsible for leading chairman's initiatives here at the FDIC, as well as some of our financial technology groups that are internal and external. Kathy also serves on the board of directors for the Pacific Bankers Management Institute, and she's a graduate of the School of Banking at the University of Colorado. Kathy holds a Bachelor of Science in Finance, also from the University of Nebraska, and a Certificate of Leadership and Management from the University of Cal Berkeley. With that being said, I now present to you our Executive Spotlight, Regional Director, Ms. Kathy Moe.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And I am so glad to be here with all of you today. It's really it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about my brand as well as answer any questions you might have. So I started with the FDIC in the area that Daryl covered, supervision and examinations. I started as a bank examiner, similar to Catrice and Daryl, where we get to review all aspects of a financial institution. I was designated as a training coordinator in the office, and I knew if I could explain and teach and share and give back to others, that reinforced my knowledge and it allowed me to keep learning. And that was really important. I knew early on that I wanted to become a supervisor and to lead my own office of bank examiners. So I did just that. I became a field supervisor over 2 of our states in the San Francisco region. But I can tell you when family or acquaintances or people would ask me about my job at the FDIC and what I do, my response was I develop careers. And the reason for that is, again, if looking at employees as our greatest asset, if they could perform their job and we had developed their careers, then we could do anything. We could examine a bank because that was the most important thing to me, was to develop careers and provide training. So that really has allowed me to use that approach and has allowed me to really oversee a very diverse set of financial institutions, as well as having staff that are prepared to supervise banks in a regulated environment, an industry that's subject to laws and regulations and many economic fluctuations and complex challenges. So it really, that approach has really bode well for me. But my goal was not to only develop staff, but to to continue to develop my own skills. I think it's really important, and you can see a little bit from my resume, some of the training and the schools that I've attended postgraduate degree, how important that is, because I think, you know, your willingness to continue to learn allows you to build on your credibility and to differentiate yourself by really being able to stand out a little bit. And the other thing I think that was extremely important to me is, um, you know, whenever some challenge or obstacle came up during my career, and people would say, well, we can't do that, or we can't address that, I would ask, why not? I think that is so important, that we try to change the areas that we view as pain points, and not stopping when someone would say, well, we can't do that. So I in addition to training, I think that being the change is kind of a motto that I've adopted. Be the change, be the person to start the change. And that's again why I knew I wanted to go on from an examiner to a supervisor, because I felt like I had could learn and add value and be that change and address some of the things that maybe I felt like could be done differently. I think that volunteering and being selected for various projects and getting outside of your comfort zone is also extremely important. And my approach, or my brand, was to approach a challenge through projects, and I really think I've got some of my greatest sense of accomplishment at the FDIC by doing things that were outside of my day-to-day job. And again, it allowed me to add value and to make a difference within the organization, being the change that I had envisioned and wanted to be. I think the other thing with projects and getting outside of your comfort zone, it allows you to establish and increase your network along the way. Um, so you're working with different people across an organization, in your regional office, in our Washington office, at headquarters. I think that's really important. And I've always encouraged every employee that I continue to work with today, it's so important to have a broad base of experiences, and to really look beyond your own functional area or your division, because that's how you best understand how the corporate culture works, and how you fit in, and where you can make a difference. Um, so after getting experience with different projects and being a field supervisor for a good number of years, I had to ask, okay, am I ready for the next level? And thinking ahead and putting myself in that mindset was one of the ways that I did that. So Daryl mentioned we have field offices, we have a regional office, and then we have our Washington office. So the next level would be a position in our regional office for me if I was going to progress. So one of the things that I did was think of myself in that role before I even became or applied for that position. So there was a deputy regional director position that was vacant. So when decisions and things came up, what I would do is think of myself, okay, as a field supervisor, this is the decision I would make. But if I was the deputy regional director responsible for 11 states in the San Francisco region, would I make a different decision or approach this differently? And that change in mindset really got me to thinking a lot more broadly, and to think more strategically about decisions that I made. And I was fortunate. I did apply and was promoted to the deputy regional director position in 2012. Now, one thing that's kind of unique too is I went from a field office to a regional office. I had done some assignments in the regional office, but I'd never actually worked in a regional office prior to that. So I think the other aspect that was so important that I continue to do today, and I did as a field supervisor, is I did a lot of listening. I listened and learned. Again, I said learning is so important, but really the only way you can listen is or learn is if you listen. And I spent a great deal of time doing that, and it allowed me to be authentic with my new direct reports in the regional office, many of which had more experience and tenure than I did in my current position and role. So I I acknowledge their experience and their strengths and what they brought to the table, and how by doing that, it really allowed me to grow my credibility with them, and also recognize the importance of being a team and completing our work together. So that being authentic and listening and playing off of my strengths and their strengths was key to being effective in the job. And in 2016, I was then promoted to regional director, where I oversee both the risk management and the compliance disciplines at the FDIC. And I can say even now, the principles remain very consistent and they're very important in my career. And that is developing careers continues to be important. While I don't do the training now, I ensure that we do have the right people in place with the right skills and the training to do their jobs. I also encourage them to continue to listen and learn because technology has changed so many things that we're all dealing with these days, and even the kinds of exams and new bank applications that we receive, it requires continual learning. So that's been part of my brand. And I continue to, even at this stage, 35 years later, I continue to get involved in projects to continue to learn and to continue to push myself out of my comfort zone, because I want to role model that for the people on my staff. I think it's so important that we never stop learning. And if you're able to ask when a challenge comes up, why not, or think about being the change or being somehow instrumental or pivotal in that change, I think that leaves you in a great position because you're pretty indispensable to the organization that you're making an impact. So being the change, I also equate with value. So that's really kind of my career progression in a nutshell. And I could go on for a long time, but hopefully I've given you a few key traits that have been important to me in my development and my career path over the last 35 years. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to you.
Kathy, thank you so much for that overview. We actually have a question for you from Deborah Rhino. She would like to know, when were you aware that you were developing your personal brand?
You know, I was really fortunate to participate in a leadership program while I was still an examiner. And I think through that leadership program, I was exposed to people in other divisions and other agencies in the federal government. And it really highlighted to me the importance of developing a brand early on and knowing what values were important to me and how I would lead. So I think really pretty early on, and probably I think you're all probably developing your brand somewhat today, and you may not actually realize it until much later that these same themes and principles have stuck with you throughout your journey, whatever that journey might be. Because I didn't really think about it initially until I was sort of forced to stop and reflect. And through this leadership program, I did that early on, probably within the first 4 or 5 years of my career. And I would say, the training at that time in this area and softer skills was probably not as well developed. So it might be viewed as a little late to some. It was the fact that it took 4 or 5 years. But I think it is important that you step back once in a while and reflect on what you're doing and if it fits within your values.
Thank you, Kathy. That was an excellent question, Deborah. Deborah has a follow-up question as well. She would like to know, what was a difficult time in your transitions into the different roles with the FDIC?
Well, I think probably the most challenging, and I sort of alluded to this, is you're going to go into a territory that you don't know, you don't have experience, and so the tendency is to just roll up your sleeves and really put in a lot of hours and to really learn and be a sponge. And I think we all do that, and I know their work ethic is very, very important to me, and so I really wanted to put in the time to make sure that I learned the job. But I think the challenge is you're not going to know everything, and to admit that to yourself and to allow others to help you. So sometimes you have to put aside your own pride, perhaps, and let somebody else help you. And so that's a challenge. I think that it's important to acknowledge and be realistic early on.
Thank you, Kathy. I have one more question for you from Michael Smith. He would like to know, how has your brand evolved over the last 3 years the most, and what has been most helpful to you in making the change? So how has your brand evolved over your last 3 years, and how has it been helpful? What's been most helpful
Well,
to you to make that change?
sure. So I think how it has evolved. I mean, it does need to evolve somewhat because of the position that you're in, and maybe the internal and external parties you're dealing with, because your decision making and every word you say can be interpreted or taken a certain way. So it's really important that your brand and how you think and how you project that brand is more representative of a corporate brand. As regional director, I'm speaking for the region, and that's what I know. People that have worked for me, they come away and they realize, they've said, you're really like the face of the San Francisco region. So my brand has to represent what Washington expects, and also a regional perspective as well. But I think that's really how my brand has evolved. That I'm a spokesperson for a region, and we need to think more broadly. So I think just with experience and understanding Washington's goals and objectives and skills, and being very familiar with those, is extremely important, and how I've been able to evolve and stress the importance of a corporate perspective.
Thank you, Kathy. This next question, I don't know if Catrice or Daryl would like to chime in. Antoinette would like to know, what is the key element in personal branding that they need to possess or develop? Again, what is that key element?
So I think that's actually a part of our presentation. And I'm looking at some of the questions that are coming in now. So we'll move to the next portion, and that will allow us to answer that question for certain. But before we do, allow me to say thank you to Kathy. She's actually doing a good segue of presenting some of the items that we're going to discuss in a little more detail in our presentation. So Kathy, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So personal branding. Kathy spoke a lot to a lot of what we're about to discuss now. What does it look like to have a personal brand? What are some of the key elements and things that you need to consider as you are indeed formulating your brand? And what impact do certain actions and things that you do have on your brand? Kathy, I've had the pleasure of working with and for while in the corporation. And so it's been a pleasure to hear her talk about her career progression and knowing what her brand looks like to those who are on her staff or her employees. And she's very much so recognized for a lot of the things that she talked about: authenticity, openness, and mindset, willingness to help others learn, to help others develop themselves, and just support and overall engagement. And so that's as a manager and even just as a general employee of the FDIC. And so you can embody some of the same things when it comes to personal branding. So we'll first talk about what is a personal brand. Next slide for me, Daryl. All right, so a personal brand in many ways is similar to the corporate entities that we talked about earlier. It's who you are, what you stand for, the values that you embrace, and the ways in which you express those values. So how do you come across in body language and personification? Like, how are you represented, and what's the rapport that you have amongst your peers, amongst your managers, or amongst teachers, other individuals that have some say-so or buy-in into your overall development? And essentially, just as a company has their brand identity, you also have some value to customers. Tim Ferriss put it best. He said, in my opinion, a good personal brand shouldn't be the goal. It should be a side effect of having good goals and acting consistently. And those are some of the things we'll talk about, is that consistency in how you perform, consistency in how you show up every day and what you do, that gives you that personal brand and the things that people want to know about you, or people will say about you when you're not in a room. Your personal brand is essentially how people perceive the unique combination of skills and experiences that you have, what comprises the essence of you as an individual. So on our next slide, when you see this person's picture, it automatically says to you, you know exactly who that is. I'm sure most of you said Oprah. And that's just it, because she's developed a personal brand and a corporate brand that are household names and essential to everyone. When you Google Oprah, you no longer have to type in Winfrey. The internet automatically knows that you're talking about a powerhouse, an individual that's well known all throughout, internationally and domestically. And that's because she's skillfully faced everything that she has, and she's developed a personal brand. Oprah's one of those people that was told no at first because she didn't have rapport in the industry. And over time, she's decided that this is what I want to do. This is how I want to establish myself. This is how I want to be seen. So she's allowed herself to share her story, to be vulnerable, to really and truly build in a network that supports her. And then she's able to support others in the process. So if you think about names like Oprah, Beyonce, Martha Stewart, LeBron James, Jennifer Aniston, Taylor Swift, any name that you think about celebrity-wise, you automatically think about, LeBron's one of the best in the business when it comes to basketball. Oprah's one of the best to do it when it comes to publications and journalism and other things of that nature. Beyonce, music is her world. And that's because they've developed a brand that you would know. So when it comes to you individually, we're going to talk about that. So what is personal branding? Again, it's your story. It's the practice of marking yourself and your career as a brand. So your career could be your progression through school at the moment, or you may be in a career pattern where you're actually in the business world. Whatever the case may be, the story plays an important role in establishing or boosting your career. So when individuals hear your name or see your resume, they can automatically say, yes, they're a team player, they're a proven leader, they're a driven individual. It's the things that highlight your strengths. They help you to establish your reputation again, allow you to build trust in your work environment and with your peers again, and also communicate your unique attributes. So what is it that you bring to your desired industry where you are, or what is it that you bring to a team? Why is it that a person would want to, in fact, have you on their team? These are all things that fold into your personal branding process and things you could consider when you try to say, okay, this is how I want to establish myself. This is how I want to be known. And this is what I really want to bring to the table when I'm associating with other individuals. If it's cultivated well, your personal brand, in fact, will help you forge ahead in your own career and processes.
And piggybacking off of what Catrice said, we wanted to lay out a couple things that are very important. And right here, we have a roadmap to personal branding. And so we have a couple of bullets that are on the chart. And if you look at the image, it says the first one is trust and loyalty. A compelling personal brand in the business world boils down to one question: can I trust you? Can I depend on you? And so the essence of your personal brand is, are you someone that will show up that people can rely on? Do you have integrity? Do you believe in doing the right thing all the time, even when people are not looking? So the first key attribute to building your personal brand is trust and loyalty. Can people trust you? The second thing that's very important, I believe, is personal interactions. When people see you, how do they feel when you walk into the room? Do you light up the room? Do you make the room warm? Are you one of those people that when you come in the room, people are already turned off? So your personal interactions are very key when you build your personal brand. Networking. I have to say that 3 times. Networking is a great way to build your reputation. Again, you have to, your network, is basically your net worth. So you have to continue to, get out of your comfort zone and introduce yourself to new people. Like Kathy said, work on different projects, different initiatives, try to get your name out there to tell people that you have the work ethic and that you can do the job. The third thing is consistency. Being dependable is key. Making sure that you have a track record, that you're always able to achieve your goals, always able to get the job done, always able to meet deadlines. Being consistent with your work product, being consistent with, kind of how you present yourself is a very important key to building your brand. And then 2 other quick things: credible. You have to be credible. You have to be an individual that when somebody calls on you, you're there to deliver at all times. And so I think that is one of the key attributes, is being truly credible to your craft and your skill set and being able to deliver on projects in a timely fashion. And the last thing, which I love the most, is being authentic. Be true to yourself. You can only be the best you that you can be. Nobody else can be you. Be true to yourself. Learn how to fit in and not fit out, though. But you want to make sure that people understand, your thought process, who you really are, kind of what your values are, what your morals are, and then try to, incorporate that not only into your personal brand, but in the organization that you're working with and working for, and their brand as well too. You want to try to line up those attributes to be consistent along the way. And so those are a few kind of attributes that you can develop or to utilize as you're working on building your personal brand. Again, trust and loyalty, positive interactions, being consistent, being credible, and then truly being authentic to who you truly are.
So I'll pause for a moment. We have a question. As young professionals and mid-level career professionals develop, we know that there are growing pains. What helpful words of wisdom and coaching do you use to help them rebrand themselves in order to move forward to the next level? So rebranding is important, and it's something that you're going to experience throughout your career or throughout your progression as you matriculate, whether again it's at school or in the career, or even in your personal lives. You have to realize that certain facets of your life require different things, and you may find that your focus shifts, your individuality shifts, who you are shifts. If you find yourself in a situation where you've started to develop a brand and somehow you have a misstep, that's okay, because the things that Daryl just talked about, if someone knows that you're trustful or trustworthy and loyal, if they understand that you're credible, that you consistently apply yourself, that you're consistently doing what's necessary to be a better person, that misstep can be something where they're like, okay, let me re-guide you. Let me help you realign yourself. Let me help you get to where you need to be. And those individuals that help you are the individuals that we've talked about, a mentor, the people that are within your network. So individuals some who are like-minded and some who are not, people who will challenge you and help you to become the best version of yourself. All of that helps with your branding. So find individuals that you trust what they say and that you find have either done things that you aspire to, or they're in a role that you value, or you look up to them in some way, shape, or form. So rebranding is always possible. It's always something that you can do. And at some points, it's actually necessary as you evolve as an individual and in your careers. And then the next question, it appears most of the emphasis is on looks. Where does that credibility and value of technical expertise and knowledge come in? How do we overcome the bias of someone who may look a certain way, however, does not create true value in hard work and expertise? So I think that's something that we are looking at more and more each day, is diversity and inclusion from various perspectives, from thought process, from work ethic, and from the look. What does an individual look like? I don't know that a person can look credible. I do know that your brand can establish you as being credible. And so that's something that you have to really and truly be comfortable with who you are, be authentic again to who you are, but know what you bring to the table, know what you put forth. And when you have other individuals who may not be pulling their share of the workload, if you will, that's when you have the opportunity to talk with that individual. Can you help them learn, grow, and develop? Can you help them do something different? And if you are in fact the person who you feel is most or best suited for the job, I tell people all the time, particularly candidates who are pursuing certain opportunities, that you are your only competition. So the individual you see in the mirror, as long as you show up as your best self and you put your best foot forward, what is for you and it will come to be. So be able to highlight your strengths, even know your weaknesses, so that you can respond accordingly. Those are all things that will help you overcome a bias that may be existent when you're going into the pool of saying, I'm applying for positions or I'm pursuing opportunities. Then just some things to consider. Okay. All right, so unwritten rules. There are things that help your brand. There are also things that detract from your brand, and the unwritten rules can be one of those. These are things that may not be stated on paper, but they're things that you should understand about the environments that you're in. One of them could be company policy, but not necessarily company culture. So something as simple as a company has a flexible work pattern, but no one on your team does an actual flex schedule. If that's the case, be cognizant of that. And if you in fact need that balance and you need the flexible schedule, be aware of how that impacts your team. Also know don't take advantage of it. So know how to play with the team and how you fit into the puzzle, so that you are not taken as being not being encouraged by the situation or not being committed to the situation. So be aware of that. Respect seniority. Individuals have gotten to where they are by some means. It's probably their knowledge, their skill set and other things. So be able to make connections with them, be able to seek opportunities from them, seek learning opportunities. When I was coming through our examination ranks, one of the things that I would do was go to senior examiners and say, this is my learning opportunity. I don't know about this topic, but I would like to know about it. You can seek out shadowing opportunities or internship opportunities. You can also see if there's an executive that you're interested in, if you can sit with them for a week or two, be able to have that opportunity just to see what they do on a day-to-day basis and work through that. Share the credit, don't hog it. There's no I in team. It's very cliche to hear, but it's very important. You have to recognize that you didn't get here on your own. There are various individuals that got you to this place. And then when you're working on projects, be sure to share the credit, because everyone has their rank in the ladder. And if you, in fact, share that credit, then it helps you. So now you're building your brand, but you're building team cohesiveness and a team brand as well. Avoid isolation. Don't do things in your own little bubble. Seek out others, seek out, experience from those around you. Try to make sure that you're bouncing ideas off of other individuals so that you're being more well-rounded in your thoughts. And then always be careful of your body language, particularly now that we're in a virtual environment. A lot of times we spend time on video, and so you may be multitasking or doing other things. That says to me you're not committed or you're not invested in what we're doing at the moment. So be present when you can be present, and watch your body language and how you are personified in your nonverbal communication. Okay. And the next thing is understand the internal culture. Kathy actually spoke to this while she was talking about learning the culture and stepping into a role where there were other individuals who had more experience than her, who had done some of the things that she hadn't done yet. And it's really building those relationships to understand what those individuals have experienced, what knowledge base they have, how do you absorb some of that knowledge and transfer it, and really how do you fit into the puzzle, and how can you increase where you are at that time. Increase your visibility. So seek out those opportunities, do the things that can be considered grunt work at time, because you'll never know where that opportunity may lead you. If someone comes to you with something challenging, take advantage of it. Sometimes the smallest challenge can have the biggest impact. So be aware of that. Communicate effectively. If there's something that you're not so strong on, or something that you're not aware of, be sure to tell people that. Sometimes communication can help. You'll find other people have worked on similar things, other people have gone through similar things, and they can offer you advice or feedback. Promote yourself. I just talked about it. You are your only competition, but you have to be willing and able to brag on yourself when necessary. Now, don't be boastful about it, but be able to speak about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, what are threats for you. Really and truly know yourself, because you're the only person that can truly sell you. And then once you develop that personal brand, other people can sell you as well. And of course, develop a career plan. There's nothing wrong with planning some more. If you have a plan, then it allows you to have a focal point. It allows you to develop objectives, and it really keeps you on task for how you are evolving and moving forward.
All right. So the next topic at hand is social media impact. And so one of the questions I always ask individuals that we're doing this presentation with is, who doesn't have a social media platform? Who doesn't have a social media account? So this is very key as you're looking at your personal brand, not only the work that you actually do, but also how you present yourself on online presence, right? On online platforms. So you have to ensure that you control the messaging that you are, how you're representing yourself. Social media is the biggest platform for showcasing your personal identity, your branding, and your reputation. Top social media sites are listed here, listed here on the screen. As you see, Facebook, is number one, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat. You want to be careful about what you put out there in the world for people to know about you. And you want to be consistent about your message across most of your social media platforms. The way social media can also boost your brand, it can also hurt your brand as well, too. If you don't monitor things that are said about you, things that you publish, things that you put out there. You have to be very careful about all the information that you put out online, because once it's out there for life, and it never goes away. One thing I like to tell people is that when you're on your social media platforms, be very careful about putting anything out that may be too political, that may be too religious, that may be vulgar in nature, that may be explicit language. you really want to be careful, because if you think about it, most employers these days, the first thing they do when you submit your application online, that HR person is probably going to go to type your name into Google, and then they're going to go through and search for who you are. And a lot of times we've had situations where individuals had some things that are out on social media that weren't very positive, that were negative in nature. And that was a reflection of their personal brand. And so that those individuals weren't looked at, or considered for opportunities. And a lot of companies are doing that now. So we really want to be careful about the things that you're putting out on your social media platforms. Be consistent, build your brand, don't hurt your brand, don't tear it down. So we have, I've developed 5 steps for you, right, to kind of think about as you're building your personal brand on social media, right? So think about what are your areas of expertise? Choose 1 to 3 things that you're really good at. If you're an accountant, are you good at information technology? Are you good at, building websites? Whatever you're good at, use that as a basis for building your expertise on social media. Be consistent, again, like I stated earlier, with your profiles. What you have on LinkedIn, you should have the same thing on Facebook, the same thing you should have on Instagram or Snapchat. You want to be consistent, especially if you're trying to build your brand, not only your professional brand, but again, some of your personal brands are things that you may do in your personal life as well, too. Make sure that you post frequently. Make sure that people know who you are and that you're committed to your brand, committed to what you're invested in and what you're engaged in. So the more you post, the more people see you, the more people acknowledge you, the more people know when they see you what to expect from you. A cool thing, and I think Kathy kind of mentioned to it, and Patrice also, you want to join certain groups or be be a part of certain organizations that can benefit you, that can actually aid to your brand, to give you some certain skill sets that you may not have, or there may be questions that you need answers to. You can go to those chat rooms and to those groups to ask questions to get the information that you need to continue to enhance and continue to build your brand. It also allows you to network in those groups because, again, you have a similar interest to most people that are in those groups and those chat rooms. And so then you start to share information and share ideas, what also allows you to continue to grow and strengthen your brand. And then the most important thing about all social media platforms is to monitor your posts. See what's being said about you. See the time it's taking you to respond. If somebody's sending you an email or a question, how frequently are you responding? I have a rule that if I get a message, I try to respond within anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. I try not to go longer than 48 hours before I respond to somebody, because people, if you don't respond timely, people think that you're not passionate. People think that you're not responsive. People think that you're not attentive. So make sure that, if you're getting a message, you respond. Make sure that you monitor what's being said about you. If you have a business outside that you're working on and you have customers that are complaining or customers that have an issue with some of your products, try to respond and be professional with it and try to give them, the great customer service that you would expect and that you would want as well, too. So those are kind of the 5 kind of steps to kind of building your brand on social media. Now, before we move forward, do we have any questions thus far in the chat? I can't see everyone.
There was a question about what undergrad students should be doing to build their brand. I think you've touched on that. Is there any other tips that you would provide as far as an undergrad student building their brand?
I would say, a couple things. I talked about earlier, being authentic to who you are. Learn what you're good at, focus on some of your areas of expertise, and also learn what you're not good at. Kathy said, it took her a while to kind of focus and develop on soft skills. I think that's very key, working on your communication skills, working on kind of your writing skills, joining Toastmasters, doing some public speaking courses, because I think as you go along in your career, those are some of the key things that you're going to have to focus on is, having a strong analytical and technical skill set, being able to communicate effectively orally and in writing. And then also just being able to build relationships. Everybody doesn't have to be your best friend as you meet people, but you want to keep in contact with people and continue to kind of follow their life, follow their progress. Because again, as you move on through your career, through your life, you're going to build your brand. And you want to make sure that you have a good network of individuals that you can reach out to that are in different industries, that may live in different states, could be, it could be reasons why you may need to contact and get in contact with those individuals. So networking is very key, but making sure that you really focus on your craft and what you're good at. strengthen your soft skills, and then do a lot of. For me, one thing I try to work on continuously is public speaking. As you listen to Catrice, she speaks amazingly. She always lights up the room when she starts to talk. So I try to surround myself with individuals like her, like Kathy, like Pamela, where I can continue to work on some of the things that I think I need to improve on. So as an undergrad, those are the things I would say focus on. Try to build your expertise and try to work on some of those soft skills and network.
Thank you, Daryl. The next question is related to National Black MBA. They want to know if the recording will be provided. So I'll let them answer that question. There's a new question that also popped up. When building your brand, when does your personal media differentiate from your professional media? Are you able to have a personal life while building your brand?
You want to start, Catrice?
Keep in mind that the two are always intermingled. You do have your own personal life, but as Daryl said earlier, be aware that individuals can search anything. If it's on the internet, it can be found. You can have a private page, it can still be found. So just be careful with how you represent yourself. If in fact you want to have a professional page, for instance, if you have a business, establish a business page. Make sure that that business page presents only your business media. If you put yourself on that page every now and again, make sure that that's associated with the business at hand. If you have a personal page, then maybe you keep it private so that the individuals closest to you have an opportunity to see what's in your personal life. And maybe every now and again, you get a little enthusiastic with the type of post that you have. But I'll honestly say, just remember that anything that you put into a social space can be transitioned into a professional space. So no matter what, the two are slightly intermingled. If you find that, your 8 to 5 version is very different from your 5 to 8 version, just be careful in how you present that information and what can be found about you. Because again, that's the virtue of digital media, is that anyone can search and find certain things at this point, and you never want to find yourself in a place where you are trying to backpedal or trying to defend something that you've put into any space for that matter.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off what Catrice said, I think it's very important to be consistent, right? Be consistent with who you really are. And so if your 8 to 5 is totally different than your 5 to 8, you probably should take a look in the mirror and kind of reflect on who you are and what you want to be known for. I think, as you transition and as you kind of go through your life and your career, you'll start to realize that who you are from 8 to 5 is pretty much who you're going to be from 5 to 8 a lot of times. And so just be consistent and just realize that be authentic, so you don't have to switch gears and always change. Be trying to find that sweet spot where you are your true self. And so that's with your personal brand as well as your professional brand.
Yeah. And that's something that we talked about recently, is showing up with a mask. You don't want to feel like you are showing up in one space with a mask on and taking that mask off when you get to your personal space. At some point, the two should cohesively work together so that you feel like you are showing up as your best self, which allows you to, again, be authentic to who you are, but at the same time, show up as a person that people respect, that people confide in, that people find to be a valuable resource for their team, for their branch, for their work ethic, whatever it is that they need. You want to be amongst that number. Okay.
And with that being said, that takes us to our next topic, building personal branding tips, right? And so what we decided to do was kind of, reflect on some of the things that we've been talking about, but we also want to give you some opportunities to look at certain tips that you can utilize as you're building your brand, right? The most important thing you want to do is define your brand, figure out who you truly are, and you want to be consistent with who you are, again, all the time. The second thing is offer something unique, differentiate yourself from the others, determine what you want to be known for, honing your craft, be good at what you do, make sure that you become that expert or that subject matter expert in the areas that you have that true skill set in. And also, number 4, do your research. Make sure that you can anticipate, all the questions that may come your way. You've researched, what's going on in the industry, what's going on in your department, what's going on in your organization. You want to know kind of what's going on so you can be that resource or be that go-to person. Kathy talked about it earlier about, seeking opportunities, trying to do something different, create opportunities for yourself. Ask for, which is what I do, ask for information interviews, especially if you're in the work or the corporate environment and there are places that you want to go. Try to meet people that are in those organizations or in those divisions, and reach out to them, ask them for information interview. An information interview could take anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, even to an hour. But you want to pick the brains of people. You want to kind of see what's going on in their area, and then you want to figure out if those are things that you want to do. Try to do an assignment in those areas. Here at the FDIC, we do what they call expressions of interest, where we go and work in an area anywhere from 59 days to 120 days, just to get exposure in that area to see if that's something that we're truly interested in. So always seek new opportunities. Talk to people that are in those areas to see if that's something that you want to do. If you get an opportunity to do an assignment, try to schedule an assignment to do in those areas as well. Again, the next one goes embrace networking. That goes back to what I've kind of talked about. Is I think ultimately networking has really opened all the doors for me. I don't think I would be where I am today if I wasn't networking, wasn't meeting people, wasn't building and strengthening relationships and engaging people, and also just showing people what I'm known for and what I can provide, and what type of assistance I can provide to them. That's been kind of one of my strengths, and I really encourage people, even if you're an introvert, find your introverted networking group. There's a group that you can kind of embrace, and you can kind of figure out how you fit into those groups. So try to enhance and embrace networking. Number 7, prepare an elevator pitch. You only get a small window of time with people. So when you meet individuals, especially if you're trying to impress them or if you're trying to get their attention, come up with a strong elevator pitch. Let people know what you're known for, and then let them know, be very short and sweet to the point, but just be open-minded to accepting quick feedback, and always ask them if you can follow up with them. Always ask for a business card, always ask for their contact information, and to just try to make sure that you follow up with those individuals. We talked about earlier, number 8, being savvy about social media. Make sure that you allow your brand to grow versus allow your brand to be hurt using social media. Being authentic, I talked about earlier. Again, stay true to who you really are. You want to, in life, I think life is about progression, about steps. And so you have to take steps to grow to be the person that you truly want to be. And it's just in the stepping stone. So take your time, but be authentic to who you truly are. And, be patient. Be patiently persistent. Be patient and persistent. So I tell people all the time, one thing that I hate when people say, wait your turn. I'm like, it is my turn. So I want to let you know that it's my turn. So, but I'm going to be persistent with it. So you'll know I'm going to be patient, but I'm letting you know I'm going to knock at the door. I want that opportunity. So what do I need to do to get there? And so try to, as Catrice talked about earlier, build you a career development plan. Build your personal development plan of where you want to go, and then set milestones. If it's every week, every month, every quarter, every 6 months, annually, figure out where you want to go and allow people to know where you want to go, and be persistent with it. You don't want to be, too pushy, but you just want to be persistent about kind of your life, your brand, and where you want to go with your life and your career.
These are great tips, Catrice and Daryl. Looks like we're running out of time. In about 30 seconds, can you answer this final question? What would you suggest around an elevator pitch in this virtual environment?
Mute, Catrice.
Daryl, if you can advance 2 slides for me. So one of the things to think about, your actual your elevator's pitch should include some of the things that say, who am I? What's authentic to me? What differentiates me from others? How does my perspective improve things? So you might say that I'm a proven leader who has the ability to assess its situations, analyze, and provide solutions and recommendations that are amenable to providing efficiency and effectiveness. That makes somebody say, well, wait a minute, you just said a whole lot, and I want to know, who are you? So be able to break it down to 2 to 3 sentences, and allow yourself to really be able to take the time to tell somebody in a matter of seconds who you are and what you bring to the table. So these are just some of the things that you can consider when doing that.
In the essence of time, we can go to one of our last and final slides and key takeaways, right? So, in today's world, we talked about personal branding, right? More than ever. So some of the key takeaways that we listed here is to ensure that you define your personal mission statement and elevator pitch, like Catrice just talked about. Discover and leverage your specialization, your skill set. build your networks, surround yourself with people that you can learn from. If you're the smartest person in the room, you probably should leave that room. So make sure that you walk into rooms, chat rooms, any room that virtual room that you can walk into where you're in there to seek knowledge. Seek out mentors and industry role models. You want to, find your mentor or find your sponsor, as well as finding a sponsor, somebody who's going to always speak positive on your behalf. And then, you want to also use visuals to reinforce your personal brand that we talked about. Establish credibility, develop your content through marketing strategies and social media, and then just share your hard work. If you receive awards, if you get, any type of acknowledgements, if you have testimonies, put that stuff out there. Let people know what you have. Put it on your social media platforms, as well as, put it up in your offices, or just let people know that you have received recognition and awards for kind of the hard work that you've done. All right. With that being said, we have Pamela. Do you want to kind of go into career opportunities with the FDIC?
Sure, we have various opportunities available. Again, we target our entry-level bank examiner positions. If you can click on this Talent Network QR code, it will take you to our careers website to provide you with additional information. There's also a link that will provide you with all of our vacancy announcements. You can set up alerts on USA Jobs where you can be alerted when any new vacancy announcements come up. So again, if you can just use your camera to scan that QR code, it'll take you to the Talent Network and you will be notified of opportunities as they become available.
Do we have any questions?
So there was a question about emailing the information on elevator pitch. And I think that is all of the questions for now.
Are you there, Paula?
I am.
I don't know if are we out of time? Are we still on, or?
We are still on, but out of time. But I want to thank you guys so much for this incredible content and for pouring into our students. It was amazing. I know I learned something and need to probably go check up on my social media pages. So during our introductions, I did mention that Daryl is a mentor, and you can go to that next slide, and how that being a mentor has shaped his perspective. And so just wanted to let you guys know that our association realizes the importance of mentorship and how that can shape your lives and your perspectives. And so have partnered with mentor spaces to provide that added value for you. So we encourage you to join the mentorship program today using the link provided and begin your journey. Then next slide, speaking of links, I also encourage you to complete the link for the survey in the chat to give us your feedback on what I believe was an incredible session today, as well as let us know what types and formats of programs that resonate well with you so that we can continue to provide value to you. The first 25 people to complete the survey entered will win an Amazon gift card, so don't delay. Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.